This is Luis J. Rodriguez, co-founder of Dia Chucha Centro Cultural and Bookstore. And we're here doing another amazing dialogue to raise funds for Dia Chuchas, but it's also an opportunity to speak to some of my heroes, and some of my best friends, some of the people who I admire, but also have been very supportive of Dia Chucha over the years. We've been here 20 years now. And I would have to say that this man I'm introducing is special in so many ways in my life, but also for our culture. And that is John
Densmore
Dinsmore
of the
of the
Doors.
Doors.
He's not
He's not
only one
only
of the
one of the
biggest
biggest
supporters
supporters
we've
we've
had
had
at the
at the
Achuchas,
Chuchas.
he has
He has
given
given
so
so
generous
generous
to
to
community of
community of
arts
arts
and
and
music,
music,
to
to
poetry,
poetry,
and has
has
been
been
um,
um,
helping young
helping young
people. I
people. I
remember when I
remember when I
first
first
met him,
met him,
just to
just to
say,
say,
he was helping a band out of East LA. Tribal Love, you remember that, John?
Yeah, I
And
do.
who I think became Quinto Sol and became some other things. But
Yeah.
I remember that he was giving these kids an opportunity to play music, to learn, to share. And anyway, it just goes to show what John is all about. So let me just introduce John Densmore to everybody. I'm sure he has something he wants to say. John, thank you for being part of the Achuchas Dialogues.
Hey, Luis, great to be here.
Yeah.
Um, how long have I mean, we are artistic collaborators, but maybe more important, we're friends.
Yeah, we are.
And it's been a while, huh? Like
It's
20, 30 years?
it's almost 30 years. I started working with Michael Mead, going to these events about 27 years ago. I'm thinking 24, 5, 26
Yeah,
years ago. I know you've been working with him a lot longer and working with others, Robert Bly and them.
yeah,
But we were doing these men's conferences. The difference with Michael Mead, well, not too much different, but one of the things he was emphasizing was multicultural. He wanted to make
yeah,
sure that men
yeah,
were properly represented in all
exactly.
their colors, races, flavors, genders, and everything else. So that's how I met you. It was an honor. I met another a lot of amazing people there. As you know, some of these men have been lifelong friends. Um,
Yeah,
but
good
yeah,
teachers.
great
You,
teachers.
Molly Domo, Robert,
Yeah.
good stuff. So, look, I got something to show you here.
Okay.
Can you see this?
Yes, I can.
It's
Uh
a
oh.
violin. I'm a drummer, so I'm not going to play it because I got this. I bought this from the Tarahumara
I
in
know.
Copper Canyon.
I was gonna say it looks like a tarumara
Ye-
homemade violin.
yeah,
Wow, that's
isn't that
amazing.
isn't that cool?
Yeah.
And
So yeah, good.
it made me think of you. I mean, they were incredibly shy, but also incredibly resilient or something. What did
Yeah.
didn't they enter the Boston Marathon with their harachis and beat everybody?
They beat everybody. Other marathons and a woman. You can find this on YouTube. I forget her name. Was beating all these people, men and women, with their own homemade shoes, which are the huarachis.
Yeah, yeah,
One thing, so people may not know, my family is Tarumara. My mother's roots are there. She grew up in Chihuahua City, Catholic. Did not know her language. Did not know her names. But she knew she was Tarumara, like her sisters, like her brothers. And to her credit, she always told us, "You have Tarumara in you."
yeah.
That was beautiful for me. So I actually went down there. So I know what you're saying. I actually bought uh, some material. I think I got a violin. I got this thing called ireke, which is like a jewel's harp with a string with
Yeah, yeah,
they kind of
sure.
blow on it. I got a Tarumara drum.
Yeah.
And I also got to know them very well. So thank you for
Wow.
bringing that up.
Yeah, I read about that in this book here.
Yeah, yeah. So that's my new book, which, by the way, is available. Just like, again, we're going to be talking a lot about John Densmore's new book, The Seekers.
Oh,
I hope you can see it. I'm not sure if it's
yeah.
upside down.
You had mine upside down, so I'll do
Yeah,
the same.
there you go. I know. There you go. But it's his latest book. I've read another book of yours, around the doors. Some of the
Un,
ordeals about some of that stuff.
yeah, unhinged.
Unhinged. That's right.
Yeah.
I read that book.
Yeah.
So thank you for that. Uh, it's
You know,
important. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Mike. John, go ahead.
well, I'm just thinking about I know you did your DNA. I read about in this book, and you got some uh, Welsh, Scottish, English in
Yeah,
there, and
yeah,
Densmore is a Scotch, Irish, Welsh name, and
yeah.
I should do my DNA. I'm
Hey,
sure I got some.
you
Uh,
never know. We may be family.
yeah, it's interesting. My aunt wrote the family history in longhand. I have it in
Mm,
my files here, and she wrote about how a Densmore came on one of those ships, Mayflower
wow,
time,
wow.
and a John Densmore in 18 something or other got captured by the Cherokee,
Okay.
and they tied him up and were gonna light the fuse there, but
Wow.
he had spoken to the chief earlier, and the chief went, no, this guy's cool, and
Wow.
they became friends the rest of their life, and they were sort of bonded, and it's kind of metaphoric for me and everything I've learned from indigenous culture and African American jazz musicians, and
Yes, let's
you
talk
know,
about some of that because I think that's to me interesting. For one thing, just so people know, I did the DNA thing. I I don't really well. The end result of it all is that it's good to know, it's interesting, it's entertaining, but we are all whole, complete human beings. That's one of the things that my elder in the Navajo Res
yeah,
told us, and I really believe that it really doesn't really up to a certain point doesn't matter what your DNA is. We're all whole and complete. It's just interesting. One
yeah.
thing
But
that
your
yeah,
point was so beautiful in this book. You made a list of all the people who've died recently,
yeah,
and that's the whole point. Like I'm on the shoulders of a bunch of jazz musicians, and
yeah,
you know
and
uh
the
to tip the
ancestors.
hat. Well, this whole book is kind of tipping the hat to everybody who fed me, and so that's
Well, one thing that I want to say is because I read The Seekers, and I really was taken by the the one about your mom. It's very powerful, and I know it must have been emotional for you, but it was quite a beautiful story. And you might want to say something about your relationship to your mom because I found it to be very moving. It kind of helps the rest of the book.
well, living with her every day wasn't easy.
I got that. Yeah,
uh, Mothers and sons,
yeah,
she tended to fill the air with a lot of chatter,
yeah.
and I wanted real stuff, and it's because she lost her sister and whatever made her talk a lot. But it's funny. I wrote this chapter on Elvin Jones, jazz drummer, the second or third chapter, and in there I found myself writing that the first drum beat that all of us heard was in the womb. The heartbeat, and then later I thought, well, of course my mom is the first chapter. I came out of the womb of the LA woman, and and
Exactly.
that's the homeland security we're all trying to get back to.
Yeah, and
That's
that's
why
beautiful.
that's why when you hit a groove in music, and it doesn't matter if it's a ballad or a fast salsa,
Mhm.
if you try and make that pocket one with 40 musicians like Gustavo Dudamel and the LA Phil,
Yeah,
or just me and you, we've done some poetry
you've
and
done some.
drumming.
Yeah,
If you're tight, it I don't know, magic comes in, and that's hearing the heartbeat.
yeah. And you mentioned when you're talking about Robert Bly, how poetry is musical in itself. It's the beat, rhythm, and language, and to me, that's very important because it's like you're making music when you're doing poetry, and using language to create the beats and get the rhythm
Yeah,
going. Yeah,
yeah,
generally, that's powerful. I also was taken by that section on Elvin Jones. I'm a big jazz fan myself, as just a fan. I don't play any instruments or anything, but I got into jazz when I was getting out of heroin and I was getting out of gangs. And somebody introduced me to the Lighthouse, remember, and Shelley's
sure,
Manhole, Company
yeah,
by the Sea. You remember all those places?
oh yeah,
And I would go, and I didn't know anything about jazz. And this guy was mentioning me in my life, and he was showing me these jazz groups. I saw Cal Jader. I remember when Poncho Sanchez was first playing, and he was
Hey,
just
we
starting.
might have been there together. I saw Cal
Man,
Jader at the Lighthouse.
yeah, amazing, amazing stuff, and it opened up the whole world. As you know, Chick Corea just passed.
I
Chick
know.
Corea was one of my favorites. Of course, Miles Davis was a.
Oh,
I hate to say
giant.
this, because Miles Davis and John Coltrane, when I was using, was my soundtrack. You know,
Uh,
I mean, I hate to say this, but I talked to somebody yesterday, another heroin addict, who was an old friend of mine, who says that he remembered listening to that, and you almost knew that these guys were on drugs. Well, not so much John, but Miles. You know, they were something, but they also created music that was so otherworldly.
yeah.
Yeah, I think that's what really we were seeking, not the drugs. We thought it was that,
Yeah.
but thinking, touching the other world.
Transcendence.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, jazz is a good substitute for heroin.
Absolutely. I totally believe that. And Elvin Jones, we should talk a little bit about him, because he's very important in jazz. But for you, he was like really instrumental in how you ended up being
Yeah. Yeah.
the kind of drummer you were.
But I had this thought about Robert Bly and poetry.
Yeah.
I think what I said was that poetry is the grandfather beat,
Right.
the Native American grandfather beat of language.
Yeah.
In other words, it's just the skeleton of it all.
Yeah.
That's why it's so difficult to me. I mean, I'm afraid of poetry. I'm pretty confident about my prose now, but
Yeah. Yeah.
it's the minimal, and that's what's so beautiful about it, because it cuts right to the heart.
Yeah. And you know, the thing about poetry is an art, but it's also, I find, something that kids and young people can get to really quickly. They get it taken away from them in schools too badly, unfortunately.
Oh,
They get
yeah,
taken away from the just society. But if you work with young people, they're almost metaphoric and poetic, as natural. It's natural for them, and it
sure.
isn't being wiped away. But yeah, I think poetry, but it is an art, and it does take a lot of. I'm judging 60 poetry books for a big major poetry prize. It's
Wow.
$100,000 for the top winner. I'm one of the
Woo.
judges. I wish they would give me that money, but anyway, I'm just one of the judges. I'm reading all these books, so I'm totally being steeped in poetry right now.
Wow.
It's amazing. It's amazing with us, the poetry that's coming out in our
And
country.
in your book, this land is, what is it? Our land. I love the title.
Yeah.
From our land to our land. Great.
Mhm.
You talk about school and how the kids aren't really fed, and same with me. I got C's in English. I didn't like it. School was, as you called it, a drag.
Yeah.
Now, because I want it, I love words, and
Mhm.
I want it, and I'm increasing my vocabulary, and I'm voracious for all that now.
Mhm.
It's interesting where I was told to
Yeah.
do it, and now I'm like, okay, I want this, and
Well, that,
I
yeah.
think I quote Paul Cummins, he's the guy who founded New Roads and some of these
Right.
schools.
Yeah. Well,
Uh,
your son went to, right? Because I remember
yeah,
speaking there where he
yeah,
was
you
there.
spoke there, and
Yeah.
actually, the African American young woman who did Biden's thing was from there.
Oh, right. Oh,
Yeah.
what's her name?
Oh
Okay.
boy,
Yeah.
Elizabeth. Yeah.
No. No.
Anyway,
Oh, you're talking about Amanda Gorman.
yeah. So
Yeah. Yeah. Of
the
course.
founder of those schools said that um, uh, it's the feeling the student gets from the teacher, of their passion about the subject, and then they want that too, rather than
Yeah.
just having to memorize a bunch of crap.
I think kids, all people, all humans want to learn. We're constant
Yeah.
learners,
Yeah.
but schools, unfortunately, the way they're set up, aren't really about learning. It's,
Yeah.
we're
Yeah.
saying,
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
and except for those teachers, as you know, who really love the
Right.
subject and love the kids, and you know who they are.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
had I had a few of them.
Yeah.
They made me want to come to classes. I
Right.
remember when I was in high school, I really didn't go to any classes before I dropped out, but I ended up going to one class, social studies class, because this guy let us all speak our mind. He was
Yeah.
really good about having a dialogue. I would show up just to his class. Of course, I didn't
Yeah.
last too long in that school, but I just showed up because it was the only class in which you could speak. There was a challenging. He challenged you. It was really exciting,
Yeah.
interesting
Yeah. Yeah.
class, and that's what I think is missing in these schools.
Like you, I never graduated college. Maybe we can get honorary degrees now.
Yeah, wow.
But I stumbled just before I quit. I stumbled into Fred Katz, uh, who played cello with the Chico Hamilton Quintet at the
Wow,
Lighthouse,
amazing. I might have caught him too.
and I
Mm.
saw him, uh, hey, he played some beautiful cymbal stuff that I put into Doors songs.
Wow, yeah.
Learn from the best.
Well, that's really amazing because, um, the way I got into poetry was I went to a poetry reading when I was 18. I have a poem about that. I got to read it now, but it was, I never heard of poetry, but I was writing, and then I was still on heroin, and I won a contest, and they gave me a plane ride to Berkeley, which even, I was scared to death of the plane ride, even though I had been shot at, I had razor blades to my neck, I had been on murder's row. I wasn't
Right.
scared of nothing, but I was scared of that plane. But
Yeah.
once I got there, I was going to go score some heroin, and instead, all these people showed up in the hotel lobby to take me and others to this poetry reading. I didn't want to go, but I said, well, I'll go and then I'll sneak out. Man, I didn't realize I was going to get mesmerized and held. It was three great poets: Jose Montoya, who's considered the godfather of Chicano poetry;
Mm,
Pedro Piatti, the Puerto Rican poet, amazing poet; and then David Henderson, the African American performance poet. All three of them reading, it totally got me. I stayed for the whole thing, and then
great.
somewhere the imagination in my head was, I want to do that.
Yeah.
I want to be like these people. And that's what I see from you going to these concerts,
Yeah.
sitting to right next to all these musicians,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
listening how they play, how they move, how they kind of created their own space in the kind of world that was all full of sounds, but they created their own space in it. And you got that because I hear it,
Yeah. Yeah.
as you can imagine, in the Doors music. I hear it in the playing that you do when I do listen to Doors music.
Was the poem you wrote about that first poetry reading have something in it about, oh, she's making me cry, don't make me cry, don't let me
Oh
cry, or
no, that's another poem.
that's
Don't
another,
don't read that poem.
don't read
That,
that poem. I
yeah,
love that.
yeah, yeah.
Just
That's when you're in the poetry scene and you go to these bars and cafes and
yeah.
you're listening to a lot of junk, and then you're getting tired. And then somebody gets up on
Yeah.
that mic and just blows you away. And
Yeah.
man, you don't want this. Don't read that poem. It makes me cry. Makes me feel sad. Makes me whatever. Don't read that poem because poetry can do that, just like as music can. And
Yeah.
I would tell you that I wasn't really a rock fan. I was more rhythm and blues, jazz. I was a big James Brown fan. I wasn't big on the Beatles when they first came out. My brother loved the Beatles. He had
Huh.
Beatles posters in his room, and I wasn't into um, rock. But I will say that what really got me to stand up was "Break On Through."
Who?
Something "Break On Through" to the other side.
Oh.
I mean, when I heard
Well,
it,
that's
that
the
was
drum beat.
man, I know. When I heard it, that was this isn't the Beach Boys. This isn't other. I was into James Brown and everything, but Break On Through opened up a whole world for me. And then I will have to say that one of my favorite songs of all time, and again, I'm sure it's true for everybody, is "Light My Fire." "Light My Fire" is a masterwork, at least to
Yeah.
me. And I saw a concert where you were playing on some YouTube thing where you were playing, and I can see how the jazz,
Yeah.
the way you played, was bringing in all that jazz clarity into
Yeah.
that music. It was quite amazing.
Well, actually, break on through the beat to that. Uh, when we were writing the song at the time, um, bossa nova was coming up from
Right.
Brazil,
Exactly.
and there was a girl from Ipanema, da 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 da
That's
da
right. I
da,
love that.
and I went, oh my god, I love this. And then I'm gonna take this groove and make it a little stiffer for rock, and so that's where that came from.
Well, beautiful. That's great. I remember Stan Getz, right? He was playing the
Yep,
saxophone.
correct.
Man, that was amazing
Yeah,
saxophone.
beautiful.
Oh, I love that. Oh, that was great. Well, it's good to know the connection.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
guess it makes sense because it's something about that rhythm and Break On Through that wasn't like, at least for me, wasn't like anything else other people were doing
yeah.
in rock, in the pop culture. It was
And
singular, and yeah, that's great.
another connection to Enciende Mi Fuego is the solos in the middle.
Yeah.
We were aware of John Coltrane's version of My Favorite Things.
Right.
God, it's beautiful.
Amazing.
And there was a couple chords in there. That song was in 3/4, a waltz.
Right.
Light My Fire is a 4/4, a regular rock groove, but with some bossa nova. But there's a couple chords in My Favorite Things that we copped and repeated over and over for the solos in Light My Fire.
There you go. Well, that's why I know it spoke to me, because a little bit of jazz that I was getting exposed to was opening up world of music, unlike what was happening in pop music, even though, as you say, it flows in there. A lot of
Yeah.
people were able to bring in some jazz, but the Doors particularly, not only did they bring in the jazz, they brought in the poetry, and that to me made them a premier singular original band that the Doors were. And for a lot of people, I think it really impacted them that way.
Hey, I want to read a poem from this book.
Okay. My friend Louis Perez of Los Lobos. That's his book. Yeah.
It's called Latin Trip, right? Yeah. I get this poem. Don't go figure. It's not about hip. You won't get it. It's a Latin trip. Low note rumble, go so high, roll so slow, just passing by. Dark eyes looking, headlights flash, loop down around, right on back. Top slick straight, crease done right, shades put on in black midnight. Downtown cool and uptown talk, bad boy look and magic walk. Don't go figure. It's not about hip. You won't get it. It's a Latin trip.
Mm-hmm.
I get it.
Thank you.
Yeah, man.
Thank you. And
I
you
get
know
it.
what? I was honored that we honored Louis the last time we had our gala, and you were there. Louis Perez from Los Lobos. He's a good friend. We probably will invite him for one of these dialogues. Me and him could talk forever.
Yeah.
He's a great dude, and Los Lobos is, of course, one of our premier bands as well. A singular, powerful group that's still out there, except for the pandemic. But
Louis, I was at the three Louis at East LA College when you
the
three
right.
of you guys
premiered it. I think that was the big first one.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah. We've been doing the three Louis for a while, and then we had to kind of put a stop to it, but it was pretty good. It was funny. It was interesting between stories. Yeah, the three Louis. Very cool. Yeah. I mean, I think this is what's the beauty of the work that we do. At least I know you're all over the world, but poetry has opened up a world to me that I never would imagine. Can you imagine a street kid, heroin using, in and out of jails, now having trips to Paris, to Berlin, to Tokyo, or England, to all over Latin America, to read poetry, to do stuff like that, to work with you. We did maybe 2 or 3 events, you and me, with your drumming and your percussion with my poetry. It was really beautiful. I know we were talking about possibly recording some of it, which I still want to do.
That's right. And Jackson Brown said he'd give us his studio.
Brown, who's also a good
we'll
friend
do
of
it.
ours.
We'll do it.
We should do it because I think it's powerful to add the poetry the way that you also add the percussion and how it just works together. And me and you, we don't really practice.
No.
Seems to flow. It flows.
It's just like the words tell me how to drum.
Yeah.
So when our keyboard player in his garage in Manhattan Beach said, "Oh, that's Jim, the singer. He's never sung before, but don't worry about it." Mm-hmm. I thought, "Oh God." And he hands me this piece of paper and it says, "Day destroys the night, night divides the day. Tried to run, tried to hide, break on through to the other." I'm like, holy shit, where are my drums?
But that's the genius that people have. Everybody has some genius, and you see Jim Morrison's genius before anybody else could, and you realize he brought it out. Everybody has it now. They gets crushed, and sometimes it doesn't go anywhere because there's not enough resources or help. But you can see when you pay attention the genius that a person can bring to the world.
And I hope that I tried to say in this new book in several places that you don't have to be an icon or climb the music charts if you find 20 minutes a day or more
Mm-hmm.
to paint, play the piano in a closet and nobody ever hears it. You're still going in the same zone, and it's a healing medicine for the soul,
Absolutely. Let's take a little break right now. Only to announce to people that this is John Densmore and Luis Rodriguez. We're doing a dialogue. We're talking about anything that comes to our mind. We are doing this as a way to raise money for Tia Chuchas. In order to give money, please go to www.tiachucha.org/donate. We really would need to raise money for help in everything we do. John has been a big friend. He's helped us a lot, and this is another thing he's doing for us. So please donate. We're doing these kind of events. We're doing arts to poor kids that don't have nothing. We bring music, we bring dance, we bring theater, we bring writing. We also work in prisons. We work in juvenile halls. We work with probation kids. We work in parole housing. We're doing all this work. So please donate to Tia Chuchas. Anyway, thank you, John, for
Yeah.
all that.
Let me
the
just
genius. Yeah,
let
go
me
ahead.
let me finish that thought. I was watching American Masters on PBS on
Okay.
Maya Angelou, and
Yeah.
her agent or her editor or something said, "Wait a minute. The definition of amateur is it means that you love something."
Yeah.
I went, there you go. So
Yeah.
if you can make it a living at it, fabulous.
Yeah.
But it's a good thing for, especially during this crazy, weird pandemic and everything.
Kids have asked me because I told them everybody's got a genius, everybody's got a calling. Somebody tell me I don't got no calling. How do I know if I got one? And the only thing I can say, well, what are you passionate about? What really moves you? Seems to me that's one indicator that you're
Yeah,
being called to something. Find what really moves you, and then go in that direction. If generally that's going to be what you're being called to do,
yeah,
and
yeah,
it could be many things because, as you know, artists sometimes do three or four things. We
yeah.
just lost Lawrence Ferlinghetti, the
I
great poet, one
know.
of my favorite poets. He did
Oh,
City Lights bookstore, and he also
yeah,
painted. He's famous for his paintings. He was also active in the community around climate change and all these social justice issues. Lived to be 101 years old.
I
That
know.
man lived a full life. So I tell people, don't limit yourself. Go where your passion is, and if you got many passions, go with them, because your calling and your callings are all mixed in, trying to be in the world the way you need to be in the world.
Yeah, I was looking around for uh, Ferlinghetti poem to read.
Yeah.
Uh,
Wow.
but I do have a poem I'd like to drum to and read
There
at
you
the
go.
end of our little talk. It's
Yeah.
by a Tarahumara dude. It's called The
Oh.
Calling.
Oh.
If you don't get offended by me reading one of your poems.
You know what? I would not. And in fact, I'm wondering if we should just do it now.
Oh, well,
Are you up for it?
yeah, man, why
Yeah,
not?
because I would hate to miss this opportunity, and we're talking and talking, and the time goes by.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to have to put it up here. Hang on a sec.
Yeah.
I have to move the lighting here so I can see it. Okay. So we did this together
Yeah.
somewhere.
We did it at
Is
the
that light okay?
Montalban. Yeah, that's good. We did it at the Montalban Theater,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I think we did it somewhere else, but I don't. It's hard for me to remember.
All right. So The Calling, Luis J. Rodriguez. Can you hear this drum?
Yeah.
Yeah. calling came to me while I languished in my room, while I whittled away my youth in jail cells and damp barrio fields. It brought me to life out of captivity in a street-scarred, tattooed place I called the body. Until then, I waited silently, a deafening clamor in my head, voiceless to all around, hidden from America's eyes, a brown boy without a name. I would sing into a solitary tape recorder, music never to be heard. I would write my thoughts in scrambled English. I would take photos in my mind, plan new parks, bushy green, concrete free, new places to play and think. Waiting. Then it came, the calling. It brought me out of my room. It forced me to escape night captives and street prisons. It called me to war, to be a writer, to be scientist, and march with soldiers of change. It called me from the shadows, out of the wreckage of my barrio, from among those who did not exist. I waited all of 16 years for this time. Somehow, unexpectedly, I was called.
Oh my God. It's bringing tears to my eyes, John. This is beautiful. Wow. What a beautiful thing.
It's part. I didn't know I was going to be a writer. I know I'm a drummer, and I felt that calling.
Yeah.
And I wrote one bestseller, and it was good because it was out when Oliver Stone's movie was out.
Right.
But it took me a few more years to have the confidence to feel like I had that calling. I don't know, but then now I've done it enough, so I know.
Yeah.
But anyway, I relate to that poem. So
well, thank you
thanks.
so much. And people may not know that I first really started writing in juvenile hall and in jail. I was in Murder's Row when I was 16, and that's where I got called. Other people were playing cards, goofing around. I sit there and started writing, and I knew that was where eventually, I didn't know at the time, was going to take me through my life, the thread that was going to pull me through. And that's why that poem came out. That actually poem was actually first written then. It wasn't that good, but I first
Wow.
the seed of it then. So yeah, thank you for that, and thank you for you just recognizing the value of callings, but also like we're saying, you have many callings, and one of your callings is you really are generous and a caring person. You care for others. I know you're giving back. You're somebody who isn't just people that get well known. You're sometimes I'll power to them, but you don't see them in the world. You don't see them in the community. John, I've seen you struggling in community with people, helping people, giving them support when they need it, and that's something that it's important that you never forget any of that. So I appreciate that because your calling is like quite. There's a lot there. The writing, of course, you're a great writer, and again, you should get the book. Tia Chuchas has it. I hope it's not upside down. Tia Chuchas has the book. And then you can order it at Tia Chuchas bookstore because we do have it at tiachucha.org/bookstore. Get his book. It's called The Seekers. It's an amazing, it's very poetic too. Your writing is getting very crisp and poetic.
I kind of found myself going off on this thing about silence as well as sound, and about how without silence, it's all sound. There's no contrast, and there's something really important there. And I realized that. Well, I always knew it, but when I was watching Gustavo Dudamel conduct the LA Philharmonic, and he would end like 20 minutes of Beethoven, a lot of sound, and then he'd still have his arms up in the air, so you're not supposed to applaud yet. And he knew intuitively you needed like a minute or two of absolute dead silence after all of that sound. And it was so delicious. I found myself writing that out of silence comes sound, like even in the universe, the Big Bang, and the first sound, the word was a vibration or whatever. And if whatever you're listening to, if it's a rock band or a symphony, if it's good, then the silence after will be deeper than the silence before.
That's beautiful. That's
Yeah.
wonderful. And you know what? In many ways, with poetry, when you're writing poetry, and it's the blank page. You're writing words, and the blank page, the white part of the page is part of your writing. You write up
Oh,
against lines, but the
yeah.
lines are also writing against the blankness, and so the blank page is part of the poem. People don't always see it that way. Otherwise, you just might as well write prose, which goes from one end to the other.
Right, right, right,
You're,
right.
you're you use the blank part of the page to help shape your poem. So it's got the
Yeah.
same kind of idea of
Well,
silence and sound.
and that crazy E. E. Cummings took it real far with
Oh man,
moving
I
stuff
used to
around the page.
I loved E. Cummings. I didn't know his whole story. He became kind of strange, but
Yeah, yeah,
he did innovate language and words, and um, his ability to just be unique is an
yeah.
important part of the whole thing.
He had a good line. The way to genius is through ruthless editing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Ooh, that's tough.
Well, you know what? I learned that writing isn't really where the writing is; it's in the revising.
Yeah,
That's the real the skill goes in
yeah,
the
yeah.
editing and revising. By the way, we should let people know that we are going to open up questions in here.
Oh,
If people got
okay,
questions, they can get it
cool.
to Mike. I guess will get it going, and so he'll share with us on the chat what questions you and me have, so we can answer anybody's questions. So hopefully we can get some before we end here. But I think what you're talking about is really how silence and sound, light and dark, a blank page, and the, the the writing is all connected. You know,
Yeah, yeah,
you have to connect all these things. You're not just in a vacuum. All life is really the connections of all these things, and that's the work that we knew working with the men who were very troubled. Some of the men,
right.
some of them come out of prison, as you remember. Some of them were in bad shape, but we were trying to connect the gaps in their lives with the sense that their own capacities could be able to fill in those gaps. That was an
Yeah,
important part of the work.
and I'm watching uh, Dudamel from Venezuela, and I saw him conduct the Venezuelan Youth Orchestra, and I'm looking down at 100 or so 20 something people with jet black hair, olive complected skin,
Mm-hmm.
playing music of 200-year-old white composers and playing it
Mm-hmm.
better than.
Yeah. Wow. You know
So
what?
I didn't know Beethoven's butt needed a shot of salsa.
But you know what? It's important to point out that Dudamel was part of La Sistema,
La
which
Sistema, exactly.
Venezuela was getting music to the poorest communities, slums.
Exactly.
And I've been to Venezuela, and I've been to some of those slums.
Yeah.
And what he pioneered with a lot of other people actually was an important thing that we actually at Tia Chuchas have been doing. We've been
Yeah.
kind of doing La Sistema. We brought
Yeah.
keyboards, guitar, and drumming to kids that didn't have anything.
Yeah.
Some of
Yeah.
our kids have gotten trained to the point that now they're doing concerts. They're good now.
Beautiful.
They're doing their own concerts,
Beautiful.
but they didn't start with nothing, and it was free. We didn't offer. If they wanted to donate, they could,
Yeah.
but we wanted to make sure that they could get free, and that has been something that you have helped us with too, getting
Yeah.
the support we
And
need.
El Sistema's motto was you get an instrument in the hand of a kid, he won't pick up a gun.
Absolutely,
So
that's
there you
exactly
are.
true.
You know.
That's actually the truth for what we do with the arts. I think again, the arts is one of those gaps that we should fill in when kids don't have, when they're depressed, alienated, when they're angry, they don't got nowhere to go. And some of them, as you know, will be using guns. The
Yeah.
the society makes sure you can get any gun or any drug anywhere. I don't care how many drug laws there are. You can get any drug and you can get any gun, but you can't always get a book. You can't always get a lesson, a guitar. You can't always get the art, the paintbrush, and the canvas. And that's the kind of world that we're in, which we're trying to fill with places like the Achuchas, but also the work that you do in helping get people to understand. This is where we should put our effort, our money, our time, fill
I
in those
think
gaps.
I think Michael Mead has said that in troubled economic times, the arts need to be doubled because
Yeah,
they carry the vision.
they absolutely do. Poets,
Yeah.
musicians, great artists, dancers, they carry the future. Many
Yeah.
times we're struggling for the present, but they also fight for the present. But they have art allows you to have that future. The vision to where we're going is very much part of the art, and that's powerful.
Yeah. My last chapter is on Willie Nelson, and I, I understand country music better now that I've gotten into it further. And that's the thing about art. You see another culture and you go, ah. I mean, even if you don't understand the language, say it's in Spanish or Italian or what, you get a feeling for the culture through the sound, and that's healing.
That is healing. And I was never a fan of country music, maybe for reasons that have nothing to do with music. But once you listen to, I wasn't even a fan of heavy metal, but once
Me
you
neither.
actually listen to, yeah, but what happened is one of my sons loved heavy metal and he wanted to go to concerts. He was a high school student. Says, well, you ain't going to concerts without me being there because I didn't know what was happening. I didn't want him, So him and his girlfriend and me would end up going to these concerts. And I'm like, oh, I'm gonna listen to this stuff. But you know what? I saw Metallica. I saw Korn. I saw System of a Down. I saw
I love them.
Cooper. Yeah, and you know what? But it all there was music there. There was skill. There was some stuff I couldn't quite get. But you know what? When Metallica was right there all together, the whole band, and it was almost orchestral. It was almost that amazingly beautiful. And so I really realized that all music, no matter where it is, has that power, has that connection. A country can do the same thing when they got the music put together, the storylines that they put out there, it could be extremely powerful for anybody.
Yeah. I hope you had earplugs when you went to those heavy metal concerts.
I know, man. It was rough, but it was beautiful, and my son really appreciated that I would support him by going.
Ah, great.
Because a lot of parents say, okay, just go.
Yeah.
I'm glad I went.
Yeah, my son has turned me on to a lot of hip hop. So
yeah. So hip hop is something that I got into myself. By the way, there's a section in the book of the hip hop world that I got into, including in '81. I went to the South Bronx. I went to the Bronx to be at the heart of hip hop. When hip hop was beginning to really hit LA, it was in the late '70s. But by '81, I'm like, I gotta go. I want to see this for real.
Yeah.
I went to the South Bronx. I got to meet people. I have some life friends over there. And hip hop was everywhere. As you know, probably you were aware, New York City was hip hop was everywhere. The graffiti was everywhere. The music was everywhere. The dancing, break dancing, every corner. There was so much hip hop. It was quite amazing. And I've been a hip hop fan pretty much ever since. I saw when it got co-opted too, but I also know the good stuff that keeps coming.
Yeah. I mean, at first I didn't get it. I thought, wait a minute, it's all bitches and hoes. What are we doing here? And Jay-Z wanted to sample some Doors 5 to 1 a little bit, and I said no. And then he sent me a letter breaking it down. He said, man, check out these words. We're trying to fight the establishment just like you guys back in the day. Yeah, and I went, oh, take it.
Well, there you go. Well, that's beautiful. I think that's a good story. The connections that are made, that they could find resonance with what the Doors was doing to what they wanted to do there. And I do think that it did get co-opted in some sense. People were pushing certain things, whereas hip hop in the beginning, but also as it developed, was always trying to say something about the world, society, about where we're going, where we're not going. And that to me is still the heart of hip hop.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we tend to co-opt everything, don't we?
Yeah, that's the problem. I mean, that's the problem where you do something, and even poetry. They were trying. I'll tell you a sad story. Some of us well-known poets, Latino poets, were approached by Nike to have poetry on the side of buses with art by photography by Annie Leibovitz. Can you imagine?
Wow.
But we couldn't do it. He says, we're not going to do this for Nike. It was a great opportunity. All us poets met, including my good friend Martin Espada, the Puerto Rican poet. We all met. There was others there, and we all sat down and said, are we going to do this? And we all said, you know what? I don't want poetry to be co-opted. I don't want to be taken. I'm not going to support Nike. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, I know what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, a great opportunity. We could have been well known and everything, but we also said, poetry is one of those places where we we can still talk the truth. If we could do it and talk the truth and even truth about Nike, that's one thing, but that wasn't going to happen. So, yeah.
Well, it's funny you bring that up because I'm not a guy who wears sports clothes, but when Colin Kaepernick took the knee, and you wrote that beautiful thing a few weeks ago, but a few years back when he did that, and Nike backed him up and didn't take shit from Trump, I went to the store and bought a Nike T-shirt.
But in that case, you're right. That's where they did something good.
But I have this theory that the incubation stage of any sort of creative endeavor is the most precious before you're trying to figure out how to sell it or before it gets polluted and whatever the hell. And then it expands and it reaches more people, and that's good. That's what you want. But there's something so beautiful about that pure beginning,
And you know what? Maybe this is a good point to bring up Amanda Gorman, who read that beautiful poetry
for
Joe Biden. She became well known. I know Amanda, as you know, she went to the school that your son went to. Yeah. And we worked together when I was poet laureate. She was the LA Youth Poet Laureate. She became the U.S. Youth Poet Laureate. A beautiful, amazing young girl with so much skill, so much talent. And her mother was from Chicago, and so we talked Chicago because I lived in Chicago 15 years, and so it was really great. And then when I saw her up there, then again it brought tears to my eyes. To see her give so much grace, so much power, so much great words and language. 26-year-old girl, I think she's 26. I mean, with so much wisdom. So that's a good place where poetry can be exposed in the
exactly. And I mean, Biden's not as progressive as I want, but I am pleased that he's acknowledging the 500,000 people who have died from the pandemic. He has poetry. We've turned a corner. At least we're going the right way. There's a lot to be done, but thank God there's a little glimmer of hope.
The thing about Biden is it's kind of an interesting thing. He's in his late 70s. He's actually evolving.
Yeah.
He's actually evolving. I've known Biden for the 46 years he's been in politics, whatever.
Yeah, right.
I never really cared for a lot of things he was about. Yeah. But you know what? The guy is actually evolving. Whether he's going to go all the way, we still got to put pressure. We still got to get organized. We still got to make sure Biden and Harris carry us through. But I am interested in his evolution. He's moving quicker. With some of the things. He's not moving fast enough, as you know, but then there's other things he needs to do. So we just got to put the pressure on all of them, regardless.
Yep.
But I do think the evolution is important. He's not stilted.
When Hillary lost, I found myself saying to friends, and I'm 76 now, this was 73 or 4. I said, God damn it, before I die, I'm going to see a woman president.
Yeah, I know.
Now I'm saying, hey, I might see a black woman president. I like this.
And there was a time when we couldn't imagine black president. Remember?
Yeah, sure.
You couldn't imagine it, and it was quite something. Obama, again, one of these guys who I think was a disappointment to many people, but you got to put history in perspective. Obama was an important person and got in there. And of course, we recognize that more has to be done, and that's important. But I can't take away from the fact that history gets made, and we have to take it further. It isn't just having these people in there, but having the people do the things that we know is going to help our communities, really support the systemic changes that we've been talking about. Not just putting Band-Aids, not just fixing this, but really deep down rooted systemic changes. And that's what I think we got to be about. That's an important part of it. The work.
Yeah.
So yeah.
When Obama first threw his hat in the ring, my jazz group, Tribal Jazz, played a little rally down in South Central, and I got to hang with him for a second. I said, hey, you got a star on Hollywood Boulevard. I got a Grammy, but I'm really excited to meet you. And we didn't think it was gonna, it seemed so far-fetched, but it's almost as exciting as when you told me I was an honorary Chicano.
Chicano. I know maybe other Chicanos are like, what? But you know what? You, again, I saw the work you did with the East LA bands and
Yeah.
musicians, the help you gave to people. And you work with Ruben Guevara, who used to be working with us and others.
Yeah,
You've helped a lot.
Ruben and I are going to we're going to do a reading in April for some university or something.
That's amazing. That's
Yeah.
amazing work you've done to step into the community. You know, we have a mutual friend, Bruce Springsteen, who
Yeah.
Also came out of nowhere to help us out and giving us support. Why would he do that? Come out of New Jersey to come to the Northeast Valley and support
Yeah.
the Chuchas. I mean, it's like, dude, this is amazing. And speaking of that, I think Bruce Springsteen and Obama have a podcast now.
Yeah, that's what I read.
Together.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, you know what? This are the voices that are out there. They're important. They're evolving, I hope. And we also have to keep struggling to make sure that we don't lose sight of what we need to do as a country and as people, the real justice that's needed. But I appreciate the culture, the part of the culture that you help contribute to that others have. I have to give credit for that. You know what I mean? So people know there are some good people trying to do some good things in all kinds of
send money to Tia Chucha because
Yeah.
I want to be up there. I don't know when the damn pandemic's over and dance Sin Jarocho and
yeah.
you know.
There you go. We got to do it. And again, we honored you because of all the support you've given us without expecting anything. We love John Densmore. He's been a great friend and supporter, and you and me have done some good stuff. With the pandemic hopefully coming to an end, who knows when we'll come together again.
Yeah.
We'll put something out there so the community gets strengthened. That's really what it is. We want to strengthen our community, bring all the energy, good energy and good forces and good hearts together wherever they may be.
So maybe some of them out there in the community want to ask us some questions.
I don't know if we got any. Michael Centeno, our director, would let us know. Oh, nope. Unfortunately, no questions. It's kind of weird, but that's fine. I thought it would be nice to have questions. But I do think we're going to end in a few minutes. Let me just say again, John, thank you for everything, your presence, your friendship. You're always coming through. Every time I've asked you for something, I try not to ask you too much, but you always come through. It's really amazing. I wish we could have that kind of a world in which we can always have coffee in the morning and talk, that kind of world. But anyway, I do see one question coming in. It says, what is your favorite Doors song to play? So you got an answer for that, John?
Well, yeah, Light My Fire, because everybody would be just up dancing the whole time.
Yeah.
And it was so thrilling. And then for an encore, we would play the end and everybody would kind of go out quietly, sort of bludgeoned and just kind of.
Yeah. But that's the power of the Doors. They had all these great contrasts. But I will say something about Light My Fire. As music develops, I'm going to tell you, Light My Fire is still amazingly beautiful now. You know how music gets old? Light My Fire doesn't get old.
Oh, sweet. And it's interesting when people do your songs, if they do the same arrangement as you get the writer royalties. That's nice. But Jose Feliciano turned Light My Fire into a ballad, made it entirely different. And it's so soulful. I loved it.
Yeah, that was great. Another question is, what are you in the future, or what are you working on now as far as music? What are your musical ventures currently?
Like I said before we started, I'm really looking for music in between sentences. That's my thing right now. Yeah. So that's where I'm at. I mean, I will go back when the pandemic's over, and I will play drums behind beautiful poets and get out there in the world. And it doesn't matter if it's Tia Chucha, 600 people, or Madison Square Garden, 6,000. It's the moment with the performer, even a duet or a giant orchestra, and then the audience. The two of you are going to dance tonight. That's the metaphor. And you don't know whether it's going to be a salsa or a ballad. And that's what's exciting about live. It's that kinetic connection. You know?
Well, that sounds like a good way to end. We need to end now, but I think that's beautiful. That's a good way to end. Um, one thing, there is one more question. Any self-care tips? Maybe you can give us a self-care tip there.
Self-care tips.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, since we're in semi lockdown, we kind of have to go in. And way in there is the deep intuition each person has to heal themselves.
Yeah.
Maybe deeper than, I mean, even your mate doesn't know way down there, you know, and that center is gold. Yeah. And so let me just say that Luis Rodriguez is a wonderful example of alchemy and shape shifting. You can do anything and turn yourself into any kind of magic.
Beautiful. Well, listen there. Please donate to Tia Chucha's www.tiachucha.org/donate. And my eternal gratitude, my friend, always being there, always opening your door. And not only that, the door, but also being somebody that's out in the world in the way you are. You're a mentor, an elder, a teacher of mine, and my friend. So thank you so much for being part of this.
And love to Trini, whom I've said, this is a progressive power couple, these two.
Yeah, Trini. Yeah, I'm sure she's out there listening to. So anyway, everybody, goodbye. Thank you for being part of this amazing effort. Give money. Please support the Chuchas.
Gracias a Dios.